Folks, welcome back inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is hour number 2 of the Jake Feinberg Show. Coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local shows, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. Without further ado, I want to bring in a legendary instrumentalist and melodic improviser. Sounds like he's in a bit of a loud area right now. David Murray, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Well, hello. How are you?
How you doing, man?
I'm fine.
Oh, it's great to talk to you, man.
Yeah, I'm on 125th Street and 5th Avenue right now.
it's bubbling out there.
Well, it's not so. Is it too loud for you?
I'll let you know. I mean, now you sound real good right now, and it's a high honor to connect with you.
All right.
You know, David, can you just talk a little bit about in Oakland the clubs that you used to when you were younger? You would go and see. I've done a huge amount of research and interviews with cats that were in that Oakland scene. Guys like Kick and Curtis Moore, these drummers who played very unique styles, and I just wanted you to talk about a couple of seminal clubs in the Oakland area that you used to go and maybe even play at once in a while.
Well, you know, when I was there, I was basically growing up, you know, so I hadn't quite even pierced the whole jazz scene by the time I left. You know, I kind of was like a kind of guy who I used to play at Esther's Over the Room, used to play at New Ruthie's Inn. I used to play at, you know, all these funk and blues places when I was there. I played a lot of proms. I went to Berkeley High, and then I went to St. Mary's High School. I used to play with Junius Courtney and his Cavaliers. We played kind of social kind of music for dances at country clubs and whatnot. Junius Courtney was kind of like a New Orleans trumpet player cat who ended up you know, coming from New Orleans, and his son played drums. Matt Courtney, he played drums and tenor saxophone. He kind of sounded like Lester Young on tenor, and played drums for the band. And I met Bob Barrett, and I went to St. Mary's, and, you know, things started changing. But I was basically playing funk and, you know, with the notations of soul and in one piece, and playing with Stanley Franks and guitar, and, you know, we were mostly kind of a funk-oriented kind of a thing, kind of like Robin Dewey and I think the Maze, you know, the band Maze. We were kind of like that, and it wasn't until I, you know, got to be 15 or 16 that I really got into jazz.
Did you know cats like, or did you see cats like Jimmy McCracklin, or you know, some of the old blues? I mean, there was all this intermeshing. The music was all. There were no labels, David. I mean, that's one reason I believe that you were truly able to liberate yourself.
Well, it's black music, you know. I mean, I went to a jam session on Slauson Avenue in L.A. with Eddie Cleanhead Vincent. We kind of clicked, and I had met Bobby Bradford because when I went to Pomona College, you know, he was my mentor because Stanley Crouch was teaching at Pomona College, and then I met Bobby Bradford and a lot of cats from L.A., you know, Red Hollander and, you know, James Newton and people like that, Buddy Collette, and all these L.A. guys. But I didn't leave the Bay Area. I mean, I'm from Berkeley, basically. I didn't leave Berkeley until 1973. I went to Pomona College. I stayed there for a year and a half, and then I came to New York on an independent study. So, you know, and the Horace Tapscott and Arthur Blythe and all these people, you know, that came later. But growing up, I was mostly playing with, you know, guys in funk music, playing in rock bands, big bands, you know, my jazz came around about 15, I guess. I wasn't really into it before then, but I was just trying to make some money with my saxophone and playing blues gigs, walking the bar. I remember walking the bar a lot, playing at some of these strip joints. Because tenor is very popular in strip joints. My friend Ranzel Merritt had a gig with Carol Doda, and I went over there a few times to play with them on North Beach. But we were kind of young, so we couldn't last. We couldn't convince them for too much time that we were as young as we were. But I grew up, and then I would put together horn sections for cats in Richmond, and they come, Bobby Blue Bland and different cats like that. I remember playing with Irma Thomas
Wow.
at the New Ruthie's Inn down there on San Pablo. Kind of chitlin joints.
Well, I was going to ask you, did you ever play the Cold Duck Club?
I heard of it, but no, I never played there.
Yeah, because that scene. So I mean, that Black Chitlin circuit.
No, where is the code? Where is that in Oakland?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because David.
East 14th Street.
Yeah.
Where is that?
Yeah, I don't know exactly where. I mean,
well, I used to play at the American Veterans Post Club, which was kind of like that. But it was like a really, it's one of them kind of clubs where you go down the hall and they got mirrors in the hallway, and then in the back they're gambling. And then and there's strippers in the front, and we playing with our band. That's like 98th and East 14th Street out in El Sobrante Park. It was kind of funky,
Oh, man. I mean, that's when my show was. I mean, just for the record, David, I was born in 1978, so, I'm sort of just trying to go back in time to pull out some of this authentic.
No, I was in New York in 1978. That's what I went to Paris in 1978 and did about 9 records in 1 year. That was a big year for me, but I was over in Europe.
I wanted you to. I know this is really important though, because a lot of this is a very important part of the Southern California Afrocentric jazz scene. Bobby Bradford was
John Carter.
Yes, man. And I one of my dear friends is a cat named Henry Franklin, the skipper, the bass player.
Yeah, I knew him, Franklin.
Okay, and they did some albums with Bobby Bradford and John Carter. Can you talk about what was most inspiring insofar as their ethos as it related to transcendent spiritual music? What got you off about their ethos?
Well, Bobby was kind of, he's from Mississippi, but he went to Fort Worth very early, and he hooked up with Ornette, and it was him that brought Ornette to L.A. to work as the elevator operator at Bullock's department store. So it was that Texas, California connection. And then, people like, I knew Ornette very well. People like Julius Hemphill from the World Saxophonist, God bless him. John Carter is also from Fort Worth. A lot of people from Fort Worth, Texas, Charles Moffett, all these people, that I ended up finding in New York. But I found them first out in California, because Charles Moffett was out in California. He was out in Berkeley. He had a school out there with Keshav and Maslik. So, and his whole family was out there. And I first met Ornette when Stanley Krauss interviewed him. He was playing at the Keystone Corner, Todd Barkin's place, and I had played there with Eddie Moore, who died on stage at Yoshi's.
Jesus, were you on the gig that he died?
No.
Okay.
No, he did a New Year's gig, and we played opposite Max Roach's band and also Dexter Gordon.
Wow.
So that was kind of my first real big gig out there. I had also played a gig with Abby Lincoln. This guy named Bob Bray pulled me on the gig. I played soprano. I was just lucky to be. I was at the Civic Center in San Francisco, but that was at the Black something awards. No, Black something. What do you call it? Urban League Black something. And anyway, Ray Charles played there, so it was kind of one of my first big gigs that I did with Abby Lincoln, and I ended up playing with her later on in Europe, different things.
What I mean, but you said you didn't really the jazz did not really register with you. You said around until 1970, and I really just wanted to know, Bradford, like what were those? Yeah.
Actually, the cat who introduced me to real hard swinging jazz. I mean, I had been studying already. I had studied Coleman Hawkins and Ben Webster and Ellington Hawkins Elvis and all these people, prior to meeting Ray Anderson, the trombone player who lives here in Long Island. He's married to Arthur Ashe's ex-wife, Jean Matusamé, now. And he's a great trombone player. So he actually, his sister went to school at Pomona, and he went through Pomona to visit her on his way up to San Francisco to Haight-Ashbury. And then we hooked up. Me and Ray Anderson hooked up at a audition for this band called Mixed Company, and we both won the jobs. And so we were playing around the Bay Area, people like Marvin Home, the Uptights, and people like that. These kind of bands. What's his?
Marvin Holmes, and you were playing with Marvin Holmes. Or you were playing alongside of them.
Well, we were playing. Pretty much, yeah. I did a couple of gigs.
Oh, that is so classic. That is so classic.
Maybe another guy. What was the other guy that played guitar? Who used to play with? Oh my God, I can't remember his name. He used to play with Marvin Gaye sometimes. Oh God, don't let me forget his name.
It'll come back. This is unbelievable. You play with Marvin Holmes and the Uptights, though. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a lot of bands I played. I mean, there was. I think I might have did a couple of subs there with what's that band that used to be kind of popular?
Was it Tower of Power?
Yeah. Lenny Pickett went to school with me. I might have played a sub or two with him. Or
wow, that's incredible.
But he was always better than me when I was there. I didn't really, we were in the same grade, but I mean, he got dropped out of school in the 10th grade, so. But he used to practice all the time, and I was always like checking him out, But those cats were way advanced before me, even though he was the same age, he was like hanging with some hairier cats, and
This is, it's like, but David, here's the point: is that like to me, it was like. You were not making anything close to commercial music. You look at any of the titans of this music, Ahmad Jamal, who I've had a chance to interview, Ramsey Lewis. Those cats were signed to major labels and were playing cover tunes, and they were playing a little bit of. They were not stretching to the cosmos. And,
but you talk about the pathos of Bobby Bradford. And
that's right.
People. Well, see, I met Bobby, I met Wilbur Morris and Butch Morris, I met Dave Baker. A lot of this came from, like I said, Stanley was teaching a music listening course at Pomona College, and he also taught Herman Melville or Moby Dick. He had a class, it was one of the most popular classes there. So I was kind of wanted to be a writer, too. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be I'd always been a tenor player, but I kind of was interested in writing and plays and, trying to be like a Mary Baraka and James Baldwin and people like that. I was a young guy, and I was very impressionable, but I had, I had excelled in writing when I was in high school, and I was kind of, then I got into the politics and all that, and it just seemed so alluring to me at that time. But finally, I just ended up settling in with Ray Anderson, and he's the one who, like I said, his sister went to Pomona, and then he came up to Haight-Ashbury. We met at this mixed company audition, and then after that, we played around the Bay Area. We would open up for what's that guy? That group. There's no place I wanna be but with you. The Isley Brothers.
Wow.
We would open up for them at the Berkeley community. I remember 1970. I was at Berkeley High before I went to St. Mary's. I actually shook Jimi Hendrix's hand. Before he went on stage in 1970, the year he passed. and he was so fucked up. His hand was numb, but he went on to he just became another person. I was on the board, and we wanted Jimmy that year and we were the ones that got them there because Berkeley High is right there at the theater. So we wanted Jimmy, so we got Jimmy. And so that was like a year that kind of turned me out, and then it was like going from funk to going to like George Clinton kind of shit, Sly Stone. I had met Sly some years earlier in Church of God in Christ in Vallejo, and so I met him on the bandstand and with him and his sister, because I grew up, playing church music with my mother and at the Missionary Church of God in Christ right there on Byron and Austin Way in Berkeley. So, I come out of the church basically. We had a great band, our family. My father played guitar, my brother was playing clarinet, my cousin played trumpet, and they didn't have a saxophone, so I got a saxophone. And there was the Dostis. The Dosti family was the Church of God in Christ up in Sacramento. Then there was the Sly's family that was in Vallejo. So that's a whole other life for me. The whole church life. So I come out of the church, basically Church of God in Christ.
I mean, we're talking to David Murray here. He's talking about his early life and career. This Black Chitlin circuit was run by a guy named Charles Sullivan. Does that name ring a bell?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Okay, I am very fascinated with this cat because Calvin Keys, another great Bay Area guitarist, told me that Sullivan was, he was rocking out. I mean, he had all the black clubs in the Fillmore district. He had James Brown and the Flames coming in, or cats like Sly. Everybody would be on this Chitlin circuit.
But see, those cats were just a tad older than me.
No, I know, but I want to ask.
And I was like, and I wouldn't have been in that zone. I wasn't quite in their zone.
No. I want to ask you though. I want to ask you something. Is it Calvin said that Charles Sullivan was found dead from a shotgun blast in his car with $20,000 in cash, and the next thing you know, Bill Graham took over the Fillmore, and it was like a mob hit on this cat. And I just wanted to know, based on the fact that you were Oakland born and raised Berkeley High cat, can you shed some light on Sullivan's significance and how, if in fact there's any credence to the fact that this was Graham walked into this situation based on the fact that Sullivan was murdered? It was a mob hit.
Well, I can't speak on that, and if I even knew, I wouldn't say.
Right.
but all I know is the first time I played at the Fillmore was with my octet and the Grateful Dead, Bob Weir, and Les joined me over there, and we packed the joint.
Oh,
that's
my!
all
What
I know.
year? What year was that? What year was that, baby? Unbelievable.
Well, that's that was after I had played with them here at Madison Square Garden, and we had also played at the Coliseum.
Oh, so you're talking? You're talking. This is in the 90s. Yeah, I dig.
Yeah, I'm talking about 90s and stuff.
I dig.
But I can't really speak on the murder because that was a little before me. I don't think Johnny Guitar Watson had come out there already, but oh man, I'm trying to remember this cat guitar player's name.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for it too, man. I know it's on the tip of my tongue.
Johnny Talbot.
Yes.
Johnny Talbot and the Things.
And the Fangs.
Yeah, see, Johnny Talbot is still a good friend of mine.
Oh my God,
we
Talbot.
hit it a little bit, but he's a great. He's He's probably one of the best out of the Bay Area ever.
Ever.
So,
but
yeah,
so I mean,
Melvin Sears.
This whole thing though, you mentioned this. Did you were you a cat that was aware of Jackson Sutter? I mean, were you going to see Rudolph Johnson? I mean, who were some of the elder statesmen that were channeling, a yogic existence and, just playing the thesaurus of scales? I mean, what I'm trying to say is you're leaving this planet every time you're playing. And even some of the older guard cats, they had to make it more commercial. The business.
Well, you remember there was two cats. There was two guys, Melvin and Marvin Williams, and there was two mulatto cats. They both did 3-card money up there on Telegraph. See, I came after a lot of shit, you know. I mean, I wasn't really the guys you talking about. They were just still. I have to say they were just a little ahead of me, and you know, I wasn't. I'd go play at New Ruthie's Inn. I'd play at Esther's Harbor Room and places like that. We played out some shit joints in Richmond, you know. But I mean, I was pretty much obscure. I was not. I was not in the league of those guys. And even when I left in '73, I had moved on away from that, and I wanted to be like Ornette Coleman or Train or somebody, you know.
Uh-huh.
Sonny Rollins, you know. I wasn't really. My head wasn't into the chitlin circuit. I was like looking at that kind of music as the kind of music you grow up with. But then, you know, it's like when you're a kid, you want to eat cereal, but when you grow up, you might want to have a steak. I was like, you know, kind of like looking at the music like that, where, you know, I could, you know, I had become more opinionated in what kind of even genre of jazz that I wanted to play. You know, I wanted to be in front. I didn't want to be in the. I got tired of playing with the mnemonics and you know, these little singing groups in the Bay Area that, you know, they keep looking at you, looking back at you like you messed up on the bandstand, and really they can't sing at all. You know, so no, so like, you know, I wanted to be in the front. I didn't want to be in the back.
I mean, what was the kind of sociological, political point of view of cats like? To me, it was like Bradford, Horace Tapscott, those guys. They knew the only way to affect change was they could affect change in their world and what they could do creatively. And
okay, go on.
No, I mean, you know what it is, David? Like, you're part of this important lineage of spiritual players that never conformed to the business. And Bradford was like that. He's still teaching today. He's a mercurial cat. I have not been able to track him down. Tapscott
he's teaching at Pomona College where I went to school. And 4 years ago, he helped me to get, along with David Oxtoby, the president of Pomona College, they bestowed upon me an honorary doctorate degree. And he was part of that.
Okay.
And I could tell you a story about it.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I was the one who I went to Pomona. When I went to Pomona, I got a state scholarship. I went there. They didn't have a jazz program. Only cat I even knew about was Stanley Krauss. And I was into him because of his revolutionary poetry. Ain't no ambulances for no niggas tonight.
Mm-hmm.
That was put out by Bob Thiel and, you know, Impulse Records. So, you know, I was into that. You know, and that's how I met Bobby. And, you know, you have to know that Bobby, Tapscott, John
Carter,
and all these people in LA, they were always professors at colleges. So they had figured out a way to let the education system pay their bills so they could play this intellectual kind of conversational music, avant-garde, quote, unquote, avant-garde, new music. And so we're dealing with the whole idea of teachers, you know. And James Newton, he also became a teacher. He's a professor now back at UCLA.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, these are the people that I came up with, you know, and I didn't choose that route, even though I have a doctorate. I mean, I do lectures and I do master classes all over the world, not just in America, but I live in Paris, I live in New York, and I live in Portugal. So, you know, I'm pretty worldly as I am now, but then I was just trying to learn what these guys knew. You know, Bobby told me he came to New York and he stayed in New York for a year. You know, Ornette Coleman may not play a concert during that time. He wasn't, and even in his whole career, he hardly played 1 or 2 concerts in 3 years. So Bobby came to New York to play with. I mean, actually, he was the first trumpet. Not Don Cherry. It was actually the first cornetist with Ornette Coleman. But people don't remember that. They remember Don Cherry because Don Cherry, you know, that's they got real tight. And when they went to New York, he was the cat. But Don was a great friend of mine and a great friend of all of us. But you know, Bobby Bradford was a very important figure of science fiction, and he couldn't hang with Arnett because Arnett didn't play that often, and even throughout his whole career, sometimes he'd go through gaps where he wouldn't even perform for 5 years.
Wow. I mean,
But he would practice every day with the band and expect the band to be laying in the cut with him. You know, Cass can't. Bobby told me, he said, "Man, I got a family, man. I got to go back. I got to go back to L.A."
David Murray just blowing. Can you relay? I mean, you said you wanted to learn from these guys. What was like? Could you talk about something profound insofar as? I mean, Dewey Redmond, like that cat to me must have been an idol to you in some ways, because he used to talk to Michael Howell and be like, you know, Michael was like, I can't hear it. And he's like, you'll hear it eventually. Like, it's the idea of like sonically stretching your ears. And I mean, you were playing with all these outfits in the Bay Area, but all I know is that when I listened to Bobby Bradford's music, there's a couple of albums on like Revelation that came out, just ridiculous albums with John Carter. And
yeah, I mean, the fact is, what they both did, they both became professors, which afforded them the opportunity to become a virtuoso on their own instruments. See, those cats were having conversations because you can't have a conversation with a musician that plays like a clarinet with a cornet. You can't have a conversation, an intellectual, grown-up conversation, unless you become a virtuoso. And in order to be afforded that opportunity, that luxury, you have to become some kind of a professor. You have to have another job to support the job that you really like.
That kind of musical terminology could never exist on its own. There were very few cats that could ever pull that off.
Well, you know, I mean, but you see right now, even all the cats in New York, all of the virtuosos in New York, they're all teaching at the new school. They're teaching at NYU. They're teaching at Manhattan School of Music. All of the great musicians are teaching somewhere because, you know, maybe if they don't teach somewhere, they end up like the great John Hicks, playing every night somewhere, and then you die at 61. You know, I mean, you're just out in the public so much. You got to drink something. You got to hang out. You got to do this and that to be who you are, and then finally, their life will kill you.
I got an email from a fan. He said, please ask David about the residency or frequency of which he played at Sweet Basil's and what was going on those years. What was the significance of that period, especially as related to the octet in the mid-'80s, roughly?
Well, the octet, we went to Chicago to do a gig at the Jazz Festival. Then we were supposed to come out to Denver and play at this place. I think it was called the Blue Note or something. And when we got in the mountains, they said the gig was canceled. So we had to go through we had to go through the motions. And then the next gig was in Texas at the Caravan of Dreams. Man, when I got back to New York, I owed the band $10,000. So, like, you know, I had set up like Monday nights with my big band at Sweet Basil. I'd be paying the cats from the tour for 6 weeks. I had to pay off that $10,000 from being broken with the band when we went out on the road. I had a great octet there. We had Olu Dara. Hell, man, that's when I met Hugh Reagan. He joined the band out there. Rashu Sadiq, man, we had, Craig Harris. We had all kind of great musicians up in that band. Monday nights at Sweet Basil was supported by Black Saint Records. We did two live albums there, Volume 1 and 2. You know, that was like I guess that was the beginning of my big band actually started in 78, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But this is the second phase of the big band, and we did a run there. We did Monday nights, and it was great. And in fact, right now, I'm going to do a showcase down here at the Poisson Rouge on Bleecker Street on the January the 6th, and I'm going to touch another generation. So I have to write a text tonight about that, about touching another generation. And we did the whole thing at the Knitting Factory. That went on for some time, 3 years or something. You know, so now I'm trying to touch a new generation of musicians. It's very... I went down to Smalls last night. I'm trying to collect my band. There's a lot of A lot of guys who listen to that and they learn how to play off of some of my records, and they're so crazy that some of the young guys, some of them are students, some of them in their 30s, some in their 40s, they're like excited that I'm gonna put this big band together. That I'm gonna take it down. I'm gonna take it down and do a month here of Monday nights, a month here of Thursday nights, a month in Harlem, or some nights. I'm gonna next year is gonna be a big year for me because I'm back in New York City, and my expertise that I've gathered by proxy all these years is it's going to pay off because I've had a lot of experience being a band leader, from playing with trio, from playing with trio to playing big band octet, big band with strings. I know a lot of shit, and I'm going to show it all off. All next year, you're going to see a lot coming from me.
Oh, I mean, in the mid '80s, can you just with that octet? I mean, can you talk about the state of what you were trying to do sonically and how it was you were trying to stretch the vocabulary of the music with that band? All I know is this: that my friend that asked this question went to see you guys all the time. He said it was he said his ears grew more than ever in any other part of his life.
Well, being a fan of, Charlie Mingus and the middle-sized group, like that, being a fan of Tad Dammer and, Thad Jones as an arranger, people like that, I wasn't as great as them, but I could use those tools. I use those tools and try to truncate what you might hear in a big band, but in a small group. Some of Ellington's recording, sometimes he would break down and break it down to like a octet nonet. You get a lot out of those groups, and it teaches you really. It's a real good study for writing for big band. You write for less instruments and try to get more. You try to get as much as out of from a big band as you can, because it's a standing unit. It's not a sitting unit, and you're more mobile. And it's more like a quintet or a quartet, So, but you got like 5 horns. You got 4 other horns with you. So you have the opportunity to really match the energy on the people, and the soloists have to all be good. And you have to have a very good drummer. Sometimes I've had Billy Higgins, I've had Eddie Blackwell, I've had going down through history, I've had Steve McCall, I've had Philip Wilson. I've had even some drummers that you don't know about. But they all have. But what the drummers would always tell me was that you always have to create a situation inside of a song where everybody don't get an opportunity to sing the solo on each song, because it then would just sound like some kind of bullshit class, like when I'm with Marcellus's band. Right. But you got to pick 2 soloists in 2 soloists besides yourself to solo. Maybe you got 3 soloists in the composition, and those cats have to stretch until they're finished. And then what you do, you reinforce it by the background of the horns. And so it's like a 1-2 whammy, It's like the rope-a-dope, When you come out strong, and everybody. I mean, there's conduction inside, and that's the whole thing of Butch Morris and the conduction. Uses conduction inside of a small unit like an octet. And so you're doing more than just playing the saxophone. You're conducting the band from being on the bandstand with your saxophone.
Can you just, when you mentioned Sonny Murray, Ed Blackwell, Steve McCall, these guys are legendary.
I didn't mention Sonny Murray.
Your memory you are so sharp, dude. I did. I mentioned Sonny Murray.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. But can you talk about your concept? Because I think a lot of cats, one reason they're...
No, the reason I say that is because Sonny Murray is from another ilk. See, now Sonny Murray is a father of avant-garde drumming. He's 80 years old right now. He's a little sick. He's in Paris. I know him. I know him for a long time. He's a great man. Now, see, there's nobody in the world that could beat him playing sound patterns and, like Train was talking about those seats of sound and the sound patterns. In 1966, he was the drummer of the year in Downbeat. He said he was not a drummer, but an acoustician.
I love this. This is exactly where I wanted you to talk about this concept of sound patterns and the idea of, instead of being so obsessed about where the 1 is and 4/4 time, being in a group where any note can be the one. I want you to talk about your concept of. I think one reason there's so much interest in coming back and blowing it all out next year is because of the idea that you're willing to take chances, you're trying to grow the vocabulary of music, and you're not interested in conventional time signatures. So can you talk a little bit about...
Well, see, right now, what you have to be, what I am and what I've become in New York, and that's why I've been so successful in terms of crossing different genres, is because you can't be scared of all those genres. See, when I came to New York with the whole loft jazz thing and all that, there was a total split dichotomy between the bebop cats and the outcasts. See, I was one that always straddled the line, but I did make sure through Bobby Bradford and people that I played with that I learned both sides. And that's what's giving me a little longevity. Now, but I'm gonna tell you. I mean, I appreciate both. I appreciate music that has no meter. But the only problem with that is that when we did that, we lost a lot of the audience. We do that. We play with no meter, and then one cat would blow for half an hour, then the other cat would blow.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the audience was with us on all of it. Maybe some of the diehards were, but right now they're all dead.
I mean, you play with no meter, though. I mean, like that, isn't that something that you? How do you work up to that point when you were in the groove? I'm not. I mean,
well, you work with the melodic invention. You develop. That's what Bobby and John were doing. And Ornette Coleman, they would use the melody as the driving factor. The drums became a mosaic of different sound patterns and different how can you say sounds, just like waves in the ocean, or like thunder, like lightning, like not lightning but thunder. But sound sketches, and it gave you a perfect kind of. Some musicians can't play bebop, but there are musicians that could play in this sound sketches kind of idea. And so what it did when it comes to the total world of jazz, what it did, it allowed a lot of people that wouldn't have been able to play bebop to actually play and get on the stage and play. And so what happened there was that there became a lot of charlatans that were up there. There were guys that didn't quite know their horns,
yeah.
And then there were guys who couldn't swing. Then Braxton came along, and then he allowed a lot of people that sounded like him to come in that couldn't actually make the attack to make the rhythmic kind of impetus that you need to be a soloist. He made that. I mean, it's like the Lenny Tristanos and the Lee Konises and these people that didn't have the attack that maybe a Train or Sonny Rollins would have. It gave them opportunity to come in. So that's why I always say that jazz. When you look at jazz is a very ecumenical kind of a music. I mean, we let all kinds into our society, to our community. Now, if you look at classical music, they don't allow people that are not like them into that community. You see, but jazz, I mean, there's a guy over playing the saxophone somewhere in Japan that can raise 3 kids off of playing jazz. There's a guy in Australia that probably raised 3 kids off of playing jazz. There's a guy in New York who plays jazz that doesn't know one bebop lick. He raised his family. So, jazz is a big umbrella, and that's what's so beautiful about it. And this whole truncation of that idea that has seemed to be permeated the whole jazz community is that it has to go back and restart itself and start playing some old hashed up bebop. I mean, the guys played bebop that was junkies and heroin. They played it well better than these young guys here that never smoked a joint in their fucking life.
Dude, you are on fire. But I mean, isn't that part of it? I mean, you have been in so many different vectors. I mean, is it the case? I mean, Jimmy Heath said that the cats today do not have the dynamic range or understanding of their instrument that your or his generation did. And
well, those cats were playing their story, man. Those cats have a story in their life.
Right.
I mean, like everybody said, oh yeah, you got to hear this 10-year-old drummer. I said, well, look, I'll listen to him after he's had 2 divorces and a court trial, and after if he's kicked about 3 times. I'll listen to his story after that. But right now, I'm not interested in listening to some 10-year-old motherfucker.
Yeah, Murray, you are. David, can we do part 2 in a couple weeks? I would love. I have a lot more to get to, but I'm short on time.
Sure, we can. I'll be in Europe, but I'll give you my European number.
All right. Well, we'll. I'll call you later. I'll get you a copy of this too. I had a ball, man.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, love always.
All right. Thank
cheers.
You very much.
Bye, buddy.
All right.
Oh, yeah, later. Yep. Heavy jazz day here on the Jake Feinberg Show. We had James M. Tume, who doesn't do interviews, but apparently had the greatest interview of his life. And then David Murray he was up in Harlem there. These cats, heavy day. Take a short musical interlude, let Roper throw on a tune, and come back and do some voiceovers in the last 15 minutes of the Jake Feinberg Show.